And good evening, everyone. Welcome, everyone, to episode 337 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the F and Marks.
I'm Jay, and he is...
Brainless. Hausen.
Yeah. Very nice.
Very evil.
Yes.
Very happy.
All right. You know, professional wrestling this week, last week there was a dog fight for Bad and Brainless. This week I had to search a little bit to really dig in and get something that really annoyed me enough to get up to that Bad and Brainless level. I did find stuff, but yeah, it was not quite the easy task. There was a lot of really good things that happened. I'm excited about it. I'm excited about Survivor Series. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm excited for Survivor Series too, Cousin Jay. I've always loved the big pay-per-views. I've always loved SummerSlam, Royal Rumble, WrestleMania. I'm kind of like the nerd for the old school Survivor Series matches and everything like that. Not to take anything away from the fact that they're going to be doing War Games tomorrow, but I'm excited, and there's optimism,
right?
And we're looking at a wrestling card for tomorrow that's only 5 matches long, as opposed to last week's AEW show, which was 409. So, a lot to get excited for. I mean, these are the 5 matches that they have booked for tomorrow look really good. For me, I had zero issue finding a Brainless. My Brainless was the first thing I wrote down after the episode and the most important number that I have to write. But I'm just, there was a lot of good. I could have went with so many different goods. I almost gave the two of us my Brainless, considering the fact that we both not only picked Jon Moxley to beat Orange Cassidy and win the International Intergalactic All Atlantic Championship, but we both
that was my lock last week.
We both had them for our lock. It was crazy. And looking over some of the stuff from last week, I mean, I feel bad for Dino Man, because I did call I did my Babe Ruth shot where I said not only are Edge and Sting and Darby Allin going to win that match, but the Dino Man's going to be the one that eats the pinfall, which he did, which has now led to him having a new name in all of AEW, which we will get into in a little bit as well. But it's crazy. I really am excited for Survivor Series. I'm excited for the possibility of what could happen at Survivor Series. And most importantly, even if a certain Pepsi Phil doesn't show up tomorrow, I'm excited that Randy Orton's going to be there.
Yeah, I mean, in the way they built it up by not having him there, it tells you a few things about what's going on. They don't need him to sell tickets. And they don't need him to sell tickets. I mean, they built the storyline perfectly well without him. Somebody who's been through a surgery that he's been through, been out as long as he's been out. I'd say the less in the plane he is, the less this and that, the better off he's going to be. Jeffrey in the chat saying he agrees with you, Brainless One. He wants to go back to the 5-on-5 Survivor Series matches from back in the day.
See, I always thought that War Games, and don't get me wrong, I love the concept of War Games. I think it's a great match. It was one of my favorites from the old school WCW days of the late 80s, when it was under Jim Crockett, and before it might even been WCW, and even like the early 90s with some of the inclinations. And a lot of the great wrestlers Like, how many times have we seen Sting and the Horsemen in the freaking, the War Games match, and Triple H bringing it back to NXT all those years ago. Now we get it on the main roster the last couple of years.
Right.
I love the concept of War Games. War Games should be the blow off to a blood feud. It shouldn't be like the Elimination Chamber. It shouldn't be like Hell in a Cell. It shouldn't be. I mean, Extreme Rules, they've actually done better with booking that one more extreme.
Right.
But it should just be on its own in a match. If you want to have it at like No Mercy in like every 2-3 years, and then have it at like Battleground or Great Balls of Fire. I don't think it needs to be a part of Survivor Series. And I really do. I really appreciate it because I'm the nostalgic person. I love the 5-on-5 or 4-on-4 or whatever it is when you had one team going up against another. And it was great because even back then, that was the one pay-per-view that was almost a guarantee that the World Heavyweight Champion was not going to defend the title, because Hulk Hogan or the Ultimate Warrior or Randy Savage or whoever else was World Champion was going in and actually taking part in Survivor Series matches. That was when WWE was great, was when they had those matches. I mean, granted, that was back in the day when we only had, 4 pay-per-views a year. But I just, the nostalgia of it, I really miss the Survivor Series matches and would like to see them come back.
Jeffrey slightly disagreeing though about War Games. He wants a War Games pay-per-view. Okay. I would not be in favor of a pay-per-view just because of what they did with Hell in a Cell, and it kind of, took away from it being a special thing. If you're doing WrestleMania, clearly, like, trying to set up War Games in a stadium may make it difficult. But, I'm completely fine with War Games being a part of the Survivor Series. It gives them time to build something. I'm cool with that. I don't know. I don't think I'd do a pay-per-view specifically by that name. But I like what Triple H has done with it ever since he brought it back. The fact that the old senile fool is no longer there for creative. Triple H is free to do his thing. So, and speaking of WCW, one bit of information in the news this week is 7 Bucks per Productions is putting together a documentary on the demise of WCW. The only thing we really know at this point is that it's going to be on Vice, and we don't know when. We don't know if there's going to be multiple parts or if it's going to be 1 2-hour-long thing. My initial thought behind it was, hey, didn't WWE already do that with the rise and fall of WCW? But I'm wondering if they're going to get a little more in depth about the end times, the end game of WCW. Are they going to bring in our boy Vince Russo to have a Vince Russo on a Vince Russo pole match? I don't know. But I'm interested to see, what they come up with, what they do with it. They did a great job with Tales from Territories, and I'm looking forward to the product that they're able to produce. What's up, Tim?
What's up, Timmy? I am too, and they've done, like you said, they've done great stuff with the Dark Side of the Rings and the Tales from the Territories, and I'm curious to see. I mean, we all know what ultimately led to the demise of WCW: guaranteed contracts and wrestlers having creative control over everything. That's what ultimately did it. There you go. There's your documentary. You got it done in 8 seconds, and the Brainless one was able to narrate this for you, so you don't have to go and get the goat of goats, who has goated more than goats have ever goated in the history of goatdom.
Just it's his sled. Good. Now I just saved you 2 boobless hours.
I got
when
two.
You said that, it just reminded me of that Family Guy episode.
Yes. Well, not Schindler. Why would I think it's Schindler's List? I don't even know why I even thought Schindler's List. But yeah, I mean, it's. I think this is good because every time they do stuff like this, on the Vice channel or Vice network, it's always good shit. It's such good shit, pal.
Yeah.
So I'm excited for that.
All right. Tim saying, I believe Randy gets the win for the team. And then he drops Cody with an RKO, and we'll get into that certainly. Chris Brown saying, hey guys, got some WWE related news for you that's broken recently. And that is something I know the Brainless one will celebrate. Being the Elite is dead.
Where the hell is my confetti button in the celebration
I know
music?
specifically when Matt and Nick Jackson have gone out and it looks like they're turning heels, but it said, at least for the time being, they were not doing Being the Elite, and we're kind of gonna be away from all wrestling related things.
What am I to do? No more Young Bucks to ruin my television. Oh yeah. I'm devastated that there's no more Being the Elite, no more Bucks on TV. Is that? I mean, is this going to be like a permanent thing? Are we never going to see them again? That would be great. And the fact that when I was writing up my notes, one of the things that was like, when the Bucks come back, they're going to have a more of an impactful role in AEW, and I'm like, oh, I can't wait for that. I can't wait until they have an impactful role when I'm still not watching that garbage. Although, I will say this. One thing that did happen that I was very disappointed that I missed when it happened. We got the return of my favorite wrestler in all of AEW. Danhausen.
Yeah.
I saw it. I watched that. I mean, we're pretty close to, okay, maybe not like Brock Lesnar saying party's over grandpa to Hulk Hogan level yet. I don't think anything will get to that, or when Braun Strowman, Gronk spiked James Ellsworth. But Danhausen's return, I mean, they did that. That was one of the very few things that I will actually applaud AEW for doing, because they knocked that out of the park. They had the big match, and Orange Cassidy was like, we have one more person that's showing up, and then they did the video package where he did the very nice, very evil, video package, and then his music hit. Tell me who's gotten a louder pop than that when he came out. Danhausen got that Daniel Bryan pop when he returned. The only one that's going to probably top that is when Randy Orton does actually come out tomorrow.
And when he RKO the arena.
Oh yeah, he's gonna RKO every spooky pal that there is. He's gonna RKO Drew McIntyre. He's gonna RKO Rhea Ripley. Let's be serious for 2 seconds. I am setting whatever the over under is for RKOs tomorrow. I would bet the over, because he's gonna hit. He's been out for a year and a half. He's got a whole bunch of RKO. He's gonna RKO the referee. He's gonna RKO Samantha Irvin. He's gonna RKO Michael Cole. If Corey Graves is there, he's gonna RKO him. Wade Barrett's definitely getting an RKO. There's gonna be at least 19, maybe 27 fans that get RKO, because he's got a quota he's gonna hit.
He does.
I need the RKO in my life, and as much as I know that has been the big thing that has impacted the fact that his back is all jacked up, I still want to see 27 RKOs tomorrow.
Right. So he'll have the shortest comeback of all time. Now, I if his back was not in reasonably good shape, he would not be allowed to be back in the ring.
Yeah, I agree.
They don't, I mean, like I was saying at the beginning of the show, they don't need him. Like, as far as selling tickets and what have you, he's still a marquee attraction. I am looking forward to, seeing more Randy Orton on my TV. He says he wants to wrestle till he's 50. He's got 7 years to go. So, all right, Chris Brown chiming in. Let's not forget Dino Man's new name via Christian.
Killswitch.
Sounds like a horror movie name. Yeah.
I could be wrong, but wasn't that what Swerve Strickland was going by when he was in Lucha Underground? I want to say he was in
That sounds right.
either Kill Switch or Death Shot or something like that. When he was prime. I mean, I've seen some of his matches
Sure.
from the Lucha Underground. Ooh, by the way, speaking of, since we're on the topic of wrestling and everything, it made me think the other day. I know, hell of a segue. We're talking about wrestling and everything. That's and since we're talking about wrestling, I know it's a horrible segue, but it's a segue nonetheless. So, at the beginning of the year, I got the Red Zone channel at the house. I paid the extra whatever for the bundle that came with it. Now, when I had this bundle, when it was on the Hulu Live, it was the NFL Red Zone, and it was like I got like TVG, a couple other like FanDuel Racing, and a couple other channels like that. And I was like, oh, okay. I have no use for any of these things, just like the Red Zone and, TVG if I want to watch Matt Carruthers look like an idiot trying to pick a pick four in New York. So I got the bundle this time, and I didn't really care to look at the channels because, I was like, hey, it gives me a reason to watch the Giants lose. Come to find out, I got 2 wrestling channels as part of this in this bundle. And I was able to watch old school New Japan Pro Wrestling. I got to watch Kushida versus Ricochet. From obviously Ricochet's been in.
Not 996 yen.
And it wasn't 999 yen, like a certain someone we know did. And I'm as soon as NFL season's over, I'm going to cancel the Red Zone package thing because I don't really need it after that. But it was just crazy because I was like, wow, I'm like, I can sit here and watch New Japan because it was like I was flipping through the channels and I was like, why? I'm like, Impact. I'm like, it's like Tuesday at 3:30 and I'm about to take the dog out. I'm like, why am I seeing Impact? And then that's when I found out because it was like New Japan, and I went, okay. Give me a reason to start watching that stuff. If I find Lucha Underground on there, it's a wrap. It's a wrap. If I could go back and watch like Ishii, go and just throw freaking nothing but chops at Eddie Kingston for 45 minutes, I'd be on board with that. But I just thought it was interesting because I finally, after having the Red Zone channel for pretty much since September, I finally reap the other benefits from having this extra bundle and part of my cable package, and I just had to mention it, especially because it gives me a chance that we get to acknowledge that somebody we know spent 990 yen to watch Chris Jericho fight Kenny Omega and then didn't cancel it for 6.5 years. So, good shit.
You still there?
Yeah, I'm still here.
You keep going in and out.
It's weird. I'm still here. I'm not John Cena. Can you see me? Am I back?
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know if everybody could still hear me or still see me, but cool that the Brainless one is able to see Impact, be able to, get other wrestling things and
just it's crazy just because New Japan was always something I wanted to get a little bit more involved in. I just didn't know how to watch it outside of like going like to different websites and everything. And it was just crazy because I know who Kushida is because of his time from NXT, and now he's in Impact. I know who Ricochet. I've known who Ricochet was ever since he was Prince Puma back in Lucha Underground. So the fact that I'm actually able to go and watch some of these things that I wasn't able to watch before, it's just been a lot of fun. And it's a different experience because I've been a fan of wrestling for 35 years. So I like different avenues. Obviously I'm going to be watching this stuff and hopefully, the pipe cleaner doesn't show up and, have to wrestle the blow up doll. Cause then I'll have to definitely cancel my entire television if that happens. But it's crazy. And yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah, my
like,
connection's for whatever reason not doing great this week.
sad. Let's just do it. We'll just blame it on the economy. We'll blame it on our president.
What was that? You were cutting in and out on me.
I said we could blame it on Biden. Am I still cutting in and
I
out?
cannot tell if you're saying anything. Yeah, I don't know what's going on with the connection today, but it is, yeah, it is what it is.
Yeah. Jiminy Christmas. It's fine. It's just it's way with technology. It's 2023, and and the internet is not flawless, and it's ridiculous that internet is not flawless, because even I've had issues like this. I do, with the door dashing, I have issues with the signal. I can't even sometimes submit some of the deliveries I have to, because I have to find a different spot because there's too many dead zones and all that. But it is what it is. It's a very, very sad day. But we still got a whole bunch of wrestling. Like we said, we got Survivor Series tomorrow. We had the pay-per-view last week. We can, cover our bases and all that stuff. I mean, honestly, I really don't need to talk anything else about the podcast, or not the podcast, about the pay-per-view from last week. Because frankly, I didn't watch it. I had no vesting interest in it. And once Jay comes back and him and I can actually have a conversation, I like to have. There's one topic about last week's pay-per-view I'd like to talk about that has really been kind of sticking to my craw. And but we had a couple of different title changes last week. Chris Statlander dropped the TBS championship to Julia Hart, so clearly they have a lot of high hopes and expectations from her. I'm kind of glad that she's getting a little bit more TV time, some being shown on the TV, getting exposure and everything like that. I've been enjoying this. I was kind of surprised that Statlander did drop the belt, but I do feel like they're going to be doing something with Julia Hart, because they wouldn't have done that if they weren't going to do anything with her. They got something in tow with Sky Blue, because they kind of changed her character up a bit. She's got a whole new entrance song going forward.
Yeah.
Maybe, just maybe, Tony Khan is booking the women's division the way he's supposed to, which is not like a coked out dumb fuck. Exactly. But I mean, that Tony Storm winning the women's title, I wasn't really that surprised. I don't get this whole let's keep hot potatoing the championship off of everybody and putting it on somebody else.
Right.
You had it on Tony Storm. She lost it to Hikaru Shida, who lost to it to Paige, who lost it back to Shida, who lost it back to Tony Storm. And it's like, is Britt Baker going to come back and take the title back from her? And
right.
And Luther the Butler. And But now that you're back, we need to talk about one match in particular from last week's pay-per-view, and it's very important to me.
All right. So are you talking about Swerve and Hangman?
No, I am talking about the Ring of Honor Tag Team Championship match.
Okay.
I would like, and I have it here in writing, I've already contacted my lawyer, and the Brainless one, would like my prediction for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles match between MJF and his mystery partner going up against the Ass Boys to be redacted from episode 336 of the F and Marks podcast, because I'm telling you right now, if I had known then what I know now, that Samoa Joe was going to end up being MJF's surprise tag team partner, I definitely would have taken MJF and Samoa Joe, because
right,
even though the Ass Boys are a cohesive, long-standing tag team, and MJF and Samoa Joe are basically a makeshift tag team, I am not in any way, shape, or form picking against the Samoan cookie seller of the world.
The Samoan cookie selling machine.
Yes. I would like that redacted. I don't know who I have to speak to.
Yes.
I figure you're the executive producer of the podcast, so I'm just going to take it up with you. I'm just the brainless brains behind the brainless of the Brainless podcast.
Yes. So one of the things about MJF, there are some rumors out there that quietly he is resigned with AEW. He didn't even attempt, allegedly, to have any sort of negotiations with WWE. Do you believe this to be a true thing or erroneous?
I think it would be absolutely silly for him to have re-signed with AEW unless Tony Khan literally gave him the same kind of contract that he gave Trevor Lawrence, or they're on the verge of getting Trevor Lawrence. Because it's not very often that you have a wrestler the caliber of Maxwell Jacob Freeman that hits free agency at such an age, who's already established. Because if you think about this, in the last 4 years, who has established themselves more, has evolved as a character more, has their stock skyrocket higher than he has had in the history of wrestling. He's the biggest free agent to hit, I'm going to say, since WCW celebrated Hulk Hogan when they had the big parade and he was in the car with Jimmy Hart and they were driving through and they were celebrating Hogan. This is what we're talking about. There is no way that MJF re-signed. And a lot of people are saying, well, he's not mentioning it as much in promo. No shit, he's not. He's a face.
Right. Yeah.
Faces are not going to do that. That is heelish activity. That is the kind of shit that I would do if I was a heel. I would be like, my contract's up in a year and a half. Fuck you, Tony Khan. I ain't re-signing. And if I am, you're going to have to really back up the truck, but I'm going to still talk to Nick Khan and your cousin Nick Khan and Paul Triple H. I think it would be silly for him to have re-signed without even at least getting like a word with WWE. I know a lot of people are saying like it's kind of surprising that they haven't even heard from his camp, but it's like, with Tony Khan, between Tony Khan giving them shit about tampering, and he made a big stink about it because he mentioned it after, pretty much a year after it happened. He mentioned it again because of this whole thing that he's got, he has nightmares about WWE. Because he's not mentioning it in his promos. Well, he's a face. Why would he?
Right.
And it just seems really weird that he would just resign. I don't see it. I think this is you're fucking mirrors. What do you think?
But we do. I kind of think I believe it. They probably offered MJF like all he wanted. Because like AEW signings, a lot of these veterans to the company, like they have a limited shelf life. You can't sit there and build your entire company around Edge at this point. You can't build it around Christian.
Or Bryan Danielson.
You can't build it around Sting. You can build it around MJF. So Tony Khan may have sat there and thought to himself, I'm not even going to let this dude think for a moment about going to the other place. I know that they had a rocky patch about a year or so ago. I tend to believe it. MJF, when he came back, he did an interview. It's like, oh yeah, Tony Khan paid me stupid money. And the stupid money probably got even higher than it was when he, got paid and came back. So I'm leaning towards MJF has actually re-signed. Speaking of signings, though, the man who they did sign, they said best wrestler in the world, Will Osprey.
Pre-signed.
Right, pre-signed. Apparently, a lot of this has to do with the good relationship that AEW has with New Japan. You know, they've done Forbidden Door twice, and you know they've kind of willingly exchanged talent, you know, for special appearances for each other.
Right.
So, I mean, last week I was completely convinced, like, on, hey, Osprey still has a deal with New Japan. How the hell can he sign a new deal while he's still a performer in the other company? But, you know, I guess where there's a will, see what I did? There's a way. So good for him, and it sounds like he felt like the schedule for AEW was more palatable for him, for his family. Osprey really wanted to stay living in the United Kingdom for the most part, and it sounds like he's going to at least have a place in the United States, but he'll probably still mostly live in the United Kingdom, you know, and come when he needs to.
Yeah, I'm happy for him. He's going to get that paycheck. You know,
and it's good because it's another AEW dude, probably going to be main event level, who is not near 40.
And I think what's interesting too is that I read some rumblings before the podcast, because speaking of people who used to wrestle for New Japan and now work for AEW, that there was rumblings about there was one person who was not happy with his booking since he joined AEW, and that is one Jay White.
Right.
And I'll tell you, I mean, they made a big to-do about him because he was just as big, if not a bigger free agent grab for them than Will Osprey was, or Adam Edge, or I'm not going to say Christian because I'm nobody's doing better work right now than Christian Cage.
That's true. The only thing that he's done wrong is that he decided that he was going to call Dino Man Kill Switch instead of Dino Man. Everything else has been top tier.
Is everybody's dad's here okay?
How about you, Edge? Oh, wait, Adam.
Oh.
I can't wait until that promo happens.
You did mention Hangman Page and Swerve. Was there something about that match that you thought that I wanted to talk about?
Well, I was going to say the spot where Hangman drank the blood and spit it out like Triple H, like he was a vampire. It sounds like I did not see that full match. I just saw bits and pieces. Like, it looked like a brutal encounter. I'm all for watching a couple of dudes beating the hell out of each other, and it looks like they're beating the hell out of each other. The visual of Hangman with like the blood kind of around his mouth and what have you, it's like, it was a great visual. Really disgusting. But I'm actually cool with it. I'm okay with it because clearly both of them are like, yeah, let's do it. I'm surprised that they did not get, you know, Papa John's to be a sponsor of this match.
For the Kool-Aid bursts.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. See, I did want to talk about the Hangman Swerve spot, but I was saving that for much later on the podcast. Because unlike you, I really felt like that spot was unnecessary, unwarranted, and unjustified. And it really did nothing for me. But I'm just at the point right now where AEW could basically, anything short of AEW sending all the wrestlers to a place where there's like a bunch of puppies and saving a bunch of puppies from a fire in a building. And I still wouldn't appreciate anything AEW did, even if they saved all the puppies. Wouldn't care. Until I can get Orange Cassidy and Danhausen fighting for the AEW World Championship, there's nothing they could do. There really is nothing they can do. Unless they can give a public firing of Matt and Nick Jackson, and I can attend that and be the one to hit him with the Donald, you're fired. Then no, there's nothing else they could do.
Okay. But the thing is they now have, like, if they've re-signed MJF, they've re-signed Hangman, they've got Will Osprey, they have some young people in the talent pool that they could build around for years. Like, clearly Jericho is in the back half of his career. Clearly Edge, back half of his career. Clearly Christian, back half of his career. We've only got a couple of months left of Sting.
Sting!
Boom! 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 So, you know, and Swerve is not that old either.
No.
So you get guys like this that you could build around, and a dude like Swerve, you know, seeing what Triple H has been doing with WWE, maybe he'd be enticed back. But you give him a big spot like this and have him in a prominent role, maybe he's less likely to jump ship back.
The fact that the whole tampering thing, I think that he was really pissed off about them releasing him when he did a couple of years ago, that I really don't think just were. I mean, I know that the whole adage, especially in WWE and in professional wrestling, is never say never. But if there was a never, it's, I think Swerve's never going to back to WWE. I think that whole release left a really bad taste in his mouth, and he's out there to stick it to them instead of proving them wrong.
I would just disagree, because it was Vince who was the one who did that. Vince and or Nick Khan. Most likely Vince. Vince never saw anything in them where clearly Triple H did. He created a faction specifically for Swerve to have, like, him be the leader of. And he wanted that to be prominent in NXT, and then Vince did Vince things.
Right.
If Swerve has that good of a relationship with Triple H, entirely possible that Swerve could be like, it was the other dude. It was the old senile MFer.
Right.
I'll go and work for Triple Paul again.
One thing I wanted to mention that you had brought up when you were talking about MJF re-signing that I thought was very interesting. And yes, I agree. Having guys like Will Osprey, having guys like Jay White, having guys like Swerve, Hangman Page, all guys who are either in their late 20s or early 30s, all guys who are very capable.
Jay White is not in that conversation. Jay White's like almost 40, right?
No, Jay White's actually, I think in his
like
early
39.
No, I don't think Jay White's that old. I thought Jay White was actually one of the younger guys, which is why I was, they went out and signed him. I could be wrong. I'm almost positive that Jay White is one of those guys where he's in that late 20s, early 30 range. And if anybody wants, can help us out and find out how old, Mr. Jay White, the leader of the Bullet Club Gold in AEW is, we would greatly appreciate it.
Yeah.
But one of the things that I did think that was very interesting that you brought up is that, yes, all those guys are very much capable of being main event caliber guys. There was 3 names you did not mention when it comes to building a promotion around, and that's the other 3 pillars that AEW called the pillars 4 years ago when it was MJF, Darby Allin, Jungle Jerk, and Sammy Guevara. We could sit here and diagnose and dissect this. But of their 4 pillars, MJF is the only one in a very prominent role. Darby Allin, I'm going to play the wait and see approach because he's got this thing with Sting, and I think he's doing great stuff. And I love Darby Allin, so I'm not going to say anything bad about Darby Allin.
And
Darby Allin,
Nepal right now, trying to train to go up Mount Everest. Chris Brown chimed in, Jay White, born October 9th, 1992. So he is 31 years old.
Thank you, Chris Brown. I thought he was, because I want to say that when he first took over the Bullet Club, they had mentioned that he was the youngest leader of the Bullet Club at 20-something years old when he was that. So, and I like Jay White. I really would have loved to have seen him in WWE. But if you think about the other two pillars, Jungle Jerk got suspended, and he's probably and we're going to get into the next thing about Jungle Jerk after this. But he hasn't really done anything. He's been there for 4 years. What has he done? He hasn't done shit other than get CM Punk fired. The kid can't cut a promo. Yes, he's really good in the ring, but he's kind of unsafe. He has proven to be a spoiled, rotten brat. I have lost any and all respect I had for that little turd. I'm convinced that I could take him in a fight, and I don't think I could fight anybody, and I still think I could beat the shit out of Jack Perry. And then Sammy Guevara, the world's biggest douchebag. So you got your 4 pillars, and 3 of your 4 pillars, Darby Allin is just a crack pillar because he is one bad break away from having his career ended. And It's not even something he can have happen in the ring. It could be something stupid he does where he tries to fly over the Grand Canyon on a Power Wheels. But it's crazy. Because that was one of the things I was thinking of, like, why would MJF resign? I'm like, they're 4 pillars. He's the only one that's really worth a shit of the 4 pillars. Yes, I know they got other people there, but Hangman Page has done everything he could possibly do. He's part of the freaking Lollipop Guild with Kenny and the Young Bucks, so I have no respect for Hangman Page. I love Swerve. I'm still pissed that Vince McMahon let him go. I love Jay White. I think he's a great star. I think he's got a lot of potential. I love Juice Robinson. Juice Robinson's another one could be a main event caliber guy.
So what do you think about what they did booking-wise with Jay White? The fact that they had him, like, in this match with MJF. MJF had gone through a tag team match and was injured and then had a match, actually got hit in the head with the Triple B, and Jay White still didn't win.
My guess is that he went in, and when he was negotiating with Tony Khan, because Jay White doesn't seem like he's a very dumb person. I'm almost positive that Triple H was calling him on the regular when he was also negotiating with AEW. And that the hiring freeze because of the merger was probably what ended up costing us Jay White in WWE. My guess is that when he was talking to Tony Khan probably made him promises of, you're going to be my world champion within a year. You're probably going to, or my world champion in 6 months or something. My guess is he made a promise to Jay White. Jay White was expecting it. And then when Tony Khan didn't deliver on it, he got pissed. Because Jay White, and yes, he's been very much booked and promoted in a certain kind of way. This is a guy who beat Okada at Wrestle Kingdom. He was the leader of the Bullet Club. He's not just some Joe Schmo. This would be like if Gunther was in charge of the Spooky Pals when they were in. Oh no, I'm sorry. This would be like if Gunther was in charge of Retribution. But it's basically what everybody thought was going to happen it's like what everybody thought was going to happen with Gunther when he got to the main roster, where he was going to get lost in the shuffle and he was going to get pissed off and released in 6 months. Nobody thought that Gunther was going to be the longest reigning Intercontinental Champion. He smoked up the Honky Tonk Man's record at this point. I just think that, I thought it was interesting when he was complaining about his booking, because I'm like, dude, you were just in the title match. You were just feuding with the biggest star in AEW. I think I'm guessing that there's some shit that happened between him and Tony Khan when he was negotiating his contract, and Tony Khan didn't come through with like what Jay White said, and he got frustrated. That's my guess. Maybe he expected to be the world champion. Maybe he promised him the world title and then just like, nah, we're going to keep it on MJF. Or it could be one of those things that he was upset with the booking because he knows deep down inside MJF didn't re-sign. So he's got to eventually drop the title to somebody, so why not Jay White?
Or if MJF did resign, maybe this was part of whatever deal he had, like going, oh, you need to keep me as champion. and you end up having him do like an injury angle and him coming back out, and it's like, is this any different than when Damian Sandow went against John Cena when he cashed in?
Yeah.
After he beat the hell out of Cena before the match, and Cena more or less was wrestling with like one arm, and Damian Sandow lost.
Yep.
You know, how is this any different than that? Sandow never quite recovered to getting to that level again. I mean, he entertained the hell out of me when, you know, they did Mizdow and he was stunt double. That was some of the greatest stuff out there. That's not like a championship gimmick. You know, that's something to entertain the fans. I loved the hell out of him, and I think they did Sandow wrong. Is Jay White seeing this as the same thing? I'm guessing, you know, it seems like a lot of pro wrestlers have ginormous egos that could be deflated, you know, with a feather.
Yeah.
Puncturing, you know, that little bubble that they got. So,
and I get it. I mean, think about this. Who's the pettiest man in all professional wrestling? That's Ric Flair.
Vince. Oh.
Think about this. Ric Flair was upset because he did all those horrible, nefarious things in the 70s and 80s where they found out that he was a scumbag. So WWE took his woo out of the introduction, and he got all upset and threw a freaking hissy fit because they took the woo out of the introduction for Ric Flair, who's not even like, when you think of WWE, do you even think of Ric Flair? Is he the first wrestler that comes to mind when you think of WWE? No. Do you think he's one of the top 10 names that comes to mind when you think of WWE? No. I'd even go as far as say I could probably think of 20 people before I even get to Ric Flair. And I'm not even talking about the people who are current. It's crazy because, like, I remember like when Carlito was there in his first run. And it seemed like, because I was following the dirt sheets, because I even to this day in 2023, I get all of my information from NoDQ.com. And I remember it seemed like at least 3 or 4 times a year, Carlito was going out and doing an interview and complaining about where his standing was, how he was being booked. And it's like, I get it. You know, the same thing with MVP. MVP used to complain about his book. And I love both of those guys. I really did. I was a huge fan of both of them back in the, you know, the early, you know, the mid 2000s, you know, before 20, even to like the 2010s. I love those guys. Yeah. But it seemed like those guys always complained about their spot. And there's always a guy that's complaining about his spot. I mean, think about the pettiness between Shawn Michaels and Hulk Hogan in 2005. 2 freaking grown-ass men who both multiple-time main eventers of WrestleMania didn't want to put the other one over. John Cena completely embarrassed an entire faction 5 years later. And I'm with you on that. I was, of all the people that they dicked over when it came to failing at the Money in the Bank, Sandow still leaves the worst taste in my mouth. I am still pissed about that. I don't even talk about it. I don't even want to see highlights of it. I don't want to see pictures of it. I want nothing to do with that because I'm with you. How does he take the briefcase, annihilate John Cena with it before the match, and then loses to a one-armed Cena? Without John Cena running up the ramp, going to the top of the stage, jumping into the phone booth, and it's Super Cena.
Yeah.
Roses are red, violets are blue. No matter how bad you beat the shit out of John Cena, he's kicking out at 2. Unless it's 2023 and he got Samoan Spike 27 times by Solo Sikoa.
Yeah. So John Cena did post this week about he got his second arm fixed. He posted a couple weeks ago about, got one arm fixed, one more to go. We don't know exactly what's wrong with either arm, but we got an awful lot of John Cena in 2023 in WWE, unexpected. the writers' strike, the actors' strike. I think Cena, like, once the actors' strike ended, was like, you know what? It's been fun. All right, I'm going to be going back to, my current day job now. Time to
Going
get
back as
my arms fixed.
I'm going to go back as pacemaker. Wait, that's Ric Flair's superhero name, Pacemaker.
Yeah, just plug it back in.
Woo!
One of my favorite things I saw this week, Brainless One, I hope you saw this clip. The mascot for the Memphis Grizzlies ended up giving a tombstone while the Undertaker's music was playing, and he did that to a turkey. Did you see that, Brainless One?
No, and I'm going to find that as soon as the podcast is over tonight because I'm going to need to watch that at least 30 times.
It was awesome. Like, Undertaker music playing. He was dressed as the Undertaker. Not Jeff's favorite version of the Undertaker, the Dead Man Undertaker. It was great.
No, but the clip I did see this week, I definitely will make you laugh when I tell you I saw it. I saw it yesterday because it was the anniversary of the butt fumble. As much as I can't stand the New England Patriots, the only 3 teams in the NFL that I'm rooting for the Patriots over at that time are the Dallas Cowboys, no questions asked, the Philadelphia Eagles, no questions asked. And you can ask all the questions, but it's always the New York Jets, too.
You are not rooting for the Patriots this weekend, I'm guessing.
Jay, I'm hoping that the game doesn't end in like a 6-3 final score because I have a feeling that's what it's going to be.
I think it's going to.
I want the Don Bosco kid to win in the worst possible way. I am team Tommy DeVito leading the Giants to the Super Bowl in 2027.
I'm watching the Patriots this year and their offense. Like, quite honestly, I'd rather paint the wall and watch it dry. That's how brutal it is watching this team.
Now, question. If you paint the wall white and you watch it dry, if Gus Johnson's doing the play-by-play, is it more enjoyable?
No.
Really?
No.
Wow, I could probably watch somebody paint a fence if Gus Johnson's doing the play-by-play. Oh no, he finished the other side. I could watch Gus
Johnson could make it that exciting. He could make it more exciting than watching the game, with like Tony Romo and Jim Nantz. I don't know, Jim.
Hello, friends. I could literally watch Gus Johnson do just about it. If Joe Biden was eating ice cream, I could watch him eat ice cream if Gus Johnson was doing the play-by-play. And he's going for another lick. Ah!
I'm Gus. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah. Apparently, things between WWE and Panini have settled. It sounds like whatever deal they've made with each other, they've made good with each other. They want the case dismissed. I don't know what things went on, but apparently that they're all okay with each other. So the trading cards and the panini sandwich are going to continue.
It's funny. This is 2 weeks in a row when you mentioned panini, and the first thing I thought of was the sandwich.
I mean, you should. You should think of the sandwich.
But that's good. I'm glad they are now. Now all WWE needs to do is trying to find a way to get MLW to stop suing them.
Well, I mean, Jerry McDevitt's gonna, probably call in another note on his soul with the devil, and
Hey, pal.
and Jesus will be like, going, actually, I own your soul. You only have it on loan. Devil can't take it. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Talking about petty in WWE, I almost felt sorry for Nikki Bella. Almost.
You're better than I am because I have never, after that whole thing with her and Cena building up for their mixed tag team match between them and Miz and Maurice, I have never felt sorry. I will never feel sorry for the Bella Twins ever again. That and what Brie did to freaking Liv Morgan in the ring. I will never feel bad, sorry, or any of that stuff. I have no sympathy for them. So you're a better person than I am to almost feel bad for her.
This week on Raw, they were actually cut. They had promo copy that they were talking about Barmageddon, which is a new show that is got Blake Shelton and it's got Nikki Garcia, former Nikki Bella, as the host for it. WWE, when Michael Cole was cutting the promo for it, mentioned Blake Shelton but did not mention Nikki. And when she went to social media and complained about it, I was 100% with her until her last line. She said,
and I quote,
I don't see this happening to the men that WWE has had before. So she tried to turn it into they don't like women and they're being sexist against me. And I will list off a whole bunch of men that they've done more than that to. They communicated Macho Man Randy Savage until he was dead. Ultimate Warrior was excommunicated for 2 decades. One Man Gang, excommunicated for 2 decades. Demolition, excommunicated for 3 decades.
If you wanted to mention current stuff that has happened, do you remember Money in the Bank?
Which one?
Where the most recent one where they just had, where they were talking about, because the first thing they did was they talked about they talked about how Edge, I don't know if there was another person, I know Edge did it, where Edge cashed in Money in the Bank successfully twice, and they were like, Edge is only one of 2 people that has actually cashed in Money in the Bank successfully twice. And I'm like, CM Punk did it at back-to-back years after he won it at WrestleMania.
Right.
And then they talked about how they were like, and it was like 4 or 5 times in WWE history that the person who won Money in the Bank later that night cashed in to become the champion, including Kane and Alexa Bliss and Liv Morgan and whoever the other one was. I can't think of it off the top of my head. They named the other 4 and not Jon Moxley.
So as much as I understand her being upset, like, hey, they didn't mention my name. This is a show I'm on. I've been with the company 16 years. But then when she tried to add in that extra little bit, that's what I was like going, you know what? No, you've lost me. Yeah. I felt a little bad for you. You spent a decade and a half at a place, did the best you could. And they couldn't even mention your name. Feels very petty. But then when you go out and try to make it a sexist thing, it's like, no. They've done it to a lot of men.
Oh no, they forgot to mention her name in that. At least they didn't send her gear after she got fired in a garbage bag like they did to Mickie James.
Right. Like Uncle Phil wanted to do with us.
Him and all 34 other fans that were in attendance that night.
Yes.
But it's come on. It's not even. I hate it when people try to peddle a narrative that's not even there. That's the shit
Right.
that pisses me off the most. And I agree with you. But again, that would also require me almost feeling bad for Nikki Bella. But again, my man, every time she said that, I lost brain cells, and you and I both know I don't have many more that I can actually sacrifice and lose. I have to hang on to the last 17 I have, so
Yeah.
I need 4 of them to brush my teeth.
All right. Chelsea Powell chiming in for WrestleMania saying she wants to have Miz against Randy Orton at the show of shows. I don't think that is a match we're going to get. I think we're going to get ourselves one Cody Rhodes versus Randall Keith Orton. And guess what? If it's on night 1, I'm going to be there.
Yeah?
Yeah. This week, I officially bought my WrestleMania night 1 ticket. I will be there. I am not going to be there for both nights, but I was like, you know what? Damn it. I have been a wrestling fan since before the first WrestleMania. It is about damn time for me to get there.
That's such good shit, pal. I hope, for your sake, I hope Gunther wrestles night 1.
He will have the match of the weekend.
Probably. Because I got a feeling he's
Maybe
going to
even
fight.
match of the year.
He's going to fight. I think he's going to fight Brock this year.
F&A, man.
Because he keeps mentioning, he did another interview this week, and he said that Brock Lesnar he goes, I'm making Brock Lesnar my end boss. He goes, there's nobody else in this company that I can see as my end boss. He goes, it's Brock Lesnar. And I'm telling you right now, that is one hell of a person. Like, if that's the guy you need to beat for your, to culminate your, like, what you want to do and accomplish in professional wrestling, other than, main event WrestleMania and become world heavyweight champion, which you're going to do. There's no fucking way that they're not going to do that with him. But if you want to make Brock Lesnar your end boss, you do it, Gunther. You've earned that right. You have been champion for almost a year and a half. You've been champion.
The Hulkamania has been destroyed.
With no guitar being used either. That's great. I have yet to find somebody on the black market that wants to buy one of my kidneys. So until that happens, and it's crazy because I live in Newport News. So you would think that somebody would want a kidney, but they only want to offer me like $47 for it, and I'm like, nah.
Yeah, I mean that's only just a one-way trip up to Philadelphia from the bus station.
That's not even enough to get a freaking Philly cheesesteak.
Yeah.
I need to do that because I need to go to Philly so I can go to Pat's and order a cheesesteak so they can throw me out because I asked for mayonnaise on it.
Yeah.
I was told that they will actually throw you out or not serve you if you ask to put mayonnaise on a Philly cheesesteak. I've been to Eagles in Virginia Beach. They did not throw me out, but the looks I got for putting mayonnaise on the cheesesteak was something I will never forget. Just like when Uncle Phil cut that promo on the two of us.
Right. Yep.
Speaking of people from WWE, Shinsuke Nakamura for the last few weeks has been calling somebody out. I really thought that he was calling somebody out for Survivor Series, but when I was putting the card together, I was unable to see him on the Wikipedia page. So I went and I went on Twitter, and I mean, granted, the source that I got the information from is not the most reliable for me, but for other people he might be. But one Sean Sapp Ross said that Nakamura is not only not booked for the show, he wasn't even on the flight itinerary to go to Chicago for this weekend. So who's he calling out? That's the big thing.
I don't know, but there is another superstar that is in Chicago who's been out for quite a bit of time. You only live once. Liv Morgan is in Chicago. What that means for this weekend, I don't know. Does she come into play in the women's War Game match? Is there something else they got planned for her, or are they just having her there for like fan access?
Oh my
I
God!
don't know.
Please tell me somebody from Damage Control is going to beat the shit out of Shotzi tonight. I can't,
And,
Jay. I can't.
F and Mark's Hall of Famer Tim has said that Shotzi is now in the same discussion as back pose for him.
I like I said when her and Scarlett hosted Halloween Havoc, I enjoyed it because they killed it. They both absolutely killed it. She's got a great look about her. She's very unique. Her in-ring ability is not the worst. I saw her swing a chair and I can't do it. I can't. I'm sorry. The kid could swing a chair better than Shotzi Blackheart can. The kid's 8.
Mm. All right. Chris Brown saying, who finally gets the IC strap off Gunther?
We're going to talk about that later in the podcast.
All right.
I can't wait for that.
Chris Brown also mentioning there was a suggestion Charlotte is the one going out with an injury to make way for someone in the match. That would be interesting.
Well, of course, it would make a lot.
But
it would make a lot of sense too, because why would you have a match where you got 4 heels going up against 3 faces and a heel when you can eliminate that heel from the face team and put an actual face like Liv Morgan on it?
Right.
Unless they swerve everybody and Liv Morgan actually joins Damage Control. I'm gonna be swinging for the fences. I got a whole because there's only 5 matches. I got a whole other bunch of predictions for tomorrow. I cannot wait because I'm gonna Varner myself.
Oh, fantastic.
Speaking of people who are in Chicago, I've seen so many posts on social media talking about how CM Punk is in Chicago. And everybody's like, oh my God, he's in Chicago. I guess he's going to be there for Survivor Series. No, dumbass.
He lives there.
He lives in Chicago. I might make a special like pre-Marquee Awards Marquee Award for CM Punk for Troll of the Year. Because that man has the trolling job that man has, and it's not even just this one. It was when he was out and before he came back to AEW, before he even debuted for AEW. That man is a troll, and he is top notch at it. I applaud that man. I love the fact that he was out taking pictures in Chicago with his wife and his friends, causing all this speculation. It's genius. It's gold. The man is playing the internet wrestling community, and it is the greatest thing. Even though I'll tell you right now, if Nakamura was there tomorrow and he was issuing this open challenge, CM Punk was the one that's answering it. And to go back to earlier when we were talking about Randy Orton and how they announced Randy Orton to be a part of the team, and it's like, yeah, you didn't really need him to sell tickets. Well, you also didn't want to have that hanging over the head of Survivor Series like, well, somebody's got to be a part of Team Cody.
Right.
It's like, not that I think that Randy Orton coming back tomorrow would have gotten the same kind of reaction as Rey Mysterio did at the 2014 Royal Rumble when he should have been Bryan Danielson.
Right.
But I think it was the right thing to do. I still think he should have came out on Monday. But
yeah,
it is what it is.
One of the things that has been out there is Triple H. This is a Vince McMahon era thing that he is trying to fix. Is that there's the perception that Japanese wrestlers have not been able to get over and booked well, and that Mexican wrestlers outside of Rey Mysterio have not been able to get over and booked well. So part of the rehab, and that's why Dragon Lee's been so prominent lately. It's why LWO has been prominent with the storyline, why they've made Santos Escobar and Carlito a thing, and eventually it's going to be Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar will be a thing. You've got that. I would say as far as the women's division goes, they have not had a problem with booking the Japanese female performers. I would say in general with Nakamura, I don't think they booked him all that poorly. If you look at all the accolades, we talked about it last week.
Yep.
He has had a really good run. Not
Hall of Fame
everybody
career.
to be a champion like over and over and over. He's had almost every other title except for the big ones. That's not a bad run.
Roddy Piper, Mr. Perfect, Paul Orndorff, Goldust, just to name a few wrestlers who have never, ever held the big title in WWE. Rick Rude. I think they all had pretty good careers. I know that we're in a different day and age where wrestling titles, change hands a lot more frequently than they did back in the day. Because you had reigns like the one that Roman's on right now, like Hulk Hogan had. Randy Savage held the title for a year when he won the title. CM Punk held the WWE Championship for 434 days. Brock held it for over 430 some odd days himself. I know that you have reigns like that, but the title does seem to change hands a lot more often than it did back in the golden era, when guys like Billy Graham and Hulk Hogan and Bruno Sammartino held the titles. They just never lost it. And Bob Backlund. Mr. Bob Backlund.
His first run, not the one where Diesel beat him in like 3 seconds.
Yeah. Mr. Bob Backlund.
Chris Brown saying that he's heard that Escobar may be teaming up with Los Lotharios.
Oh, Nicole's going to be thrilled about that.
Yeah. Maybe they could name the whole faction that.
Now, I know, since you did mention the fact that they're trying to promote the Japanese wrestlers to be better, have better presentation,
more prominent and better spots,
than what Vince had. I have a feeling that the reason that they're doing that is because they want to get Okada.
It's not the worst idea. I mean, that way, when Braun Strowman comes back, he won't have to choose Nicholas.
That was
when he sees Okada, he could actually pick him this time. Pick him or Shane McMahon's son.
Declan?
I don't know, the one that they keep on talking about, who wants to have a wrestling faction or become a professional wrestler, and then he's mentioned that he might want to have a faction called the Meaner Street Posse.
Oh boy, as long as he has let's see, I guess not Rodney, it could be Randy instead of Rodney, but it has to be Pete Gas Jr.
Now, would it make it more bougie if it's Pete Gas the Third?
Jay, let me ask you, since you did mention it. When they first introduced the Mean Street Posse, considering the fact that you and I had a very long tenure in the wonderful state of Connecticut.
Yes.
Did those two, when it was Rodney and Pete Gas, I forget who the third guy, what his name was when they brought him in, but I will never forget Pete Gas. That's the best part. Yeah. Did they not look like dudes from Greenwich, Marlboro, not Marlboro,
Fairfield? Yeah.
They look like they were from Munson.
Yeah, I'd go with that.
Where the hell the freaking outlets are down in the southern part of Connecticut near Greenwich?
Oh, there's Clinton outlets.
That's it, Clinton. They look like dudes from Clinton.
Yeah.
Yeah, they fit the part, especially Rodney. Rodney definitely looked like a douchebag from Connecticut. I was convinced the dude was actually from Connecticut, unlike Triple H.
Right. Triple Paul's from New Hampshire.
New Hampshire? New Hampshire.
Yeah.
What about Bob?
Yep.
The Mean Street. But yeah, I think it is Declan, and I know The Undertaker said that if he wants to get into wrestling, he said, give me a call. I will definitely help you train, because you don't want your dad helping you train.
Oh, that's so good.
Speaking of sons of WWE superstars,
Superstars.
we had a son of a legend, and I do use the term legend here because it does fit this person perfectly, who got arrested this week. Surprisingly, it was Nick Hogan. Nick Hogan, who has gotten himself into a little bit of trouble, probably of all of the sons of some of the greatest wrestlers of all time, Nick Hogan probably stands out the most, and not for the right reasons like Randy Orton and Cody Rhodes have done. Nick Hogan once again got arrested, this time for a DUI. It just keeps adding on to like Hulk, man. What are you doing? I know your son's an adult, and he should be doing adult things. I'm pretty sure at this point, Nick Hogan's got to be closer to my age. He's got to be in his 30s at this point.
I believe he's 33.
Right. It's just, come on, man. It's not a good look for you. It's not a good look for your dad. And the sad part is because of the fact that you are the son of Hulk Hogan, that it's going to look bad on WWE. I hate to say it, but that's the truth. And now we're not going to get Nick Hogan versus, Shane McMahon, or Hulk Hogan versus Shane McMahon at WrestleMania 40 this year.
With what happened, what was it, about 15 years ago, when he got into the accident, when he was driving under the influence, you'd like to think that would be a big enough wake-up call to, like, dude, don't do that. Don't do that, not never. And, me being how I am, I'm like, prayers up for Nick Hogan. Hopefully he figures out his path, because clearly he hasn't. Being the MC of the bikini contest at his dad's bar in Clearwater, Florida, drinking and then driving home, and I think he was booked like 3 a.m. Nothing good happens after midnight. Like, don't do it. By God, don't do it. Nick Hogan, dude, I hope you get your shit together.
Yeah. I'm just trying to figure out what lie Hulk Hogan's going to use to get him. It wasn't Nick driving, brother. It was Jeff Hardy. He jumped in the driver's seat to save Jeff Hardy, brother.
He'll figure something out.
Yeah, it's Hulk Hogan. I'm sure he's got something in his brain, and if not, Sky Daily will help him out.
Yeah. Brother. So we had a couple of things Ring of Honor-wise happen this week. Ronda Rousey made a surprise appearance at a Ring of Honor show. It was taped after Rampage, and apparently she hasn't gotten her fill of wrestling, but prefers wrestling at a pace on her own. And she's still apparently enough of a name that people want to invite her in, even though she's bad in the ring and not the greatest promo. What do you think about Ronda Rousey showing up in Ring of Honor?
I laughed my ass off when Billy Starks dropped her on her head. I said the woman's got her first match in, not even official. It's unofficially her first match in AEW, and she literally got dropped on her head. That is the most poetic thing. And I think she's going to be a good fit for AEW. And I'm going to tell you why. Because number one, they've done a hell of a job at booking Paige Van Zant since they brought her over from UFC. Number two, she's awful in the ring. So right there, she's already going to fit in with at least 80% of the roster.
Yeah.
And number 3, she's not going to have to worry about having to worry about how many times she has to wrestle because Tony Khan's going to forget about her just like he forgets about every other woman in this division for the women, i.e. Paige Van Zandt. Paige Van Zandt. I don't know what the hell this man is doing. The only person who has ties to UFC that is doing a damn thing in AEW is Marina Shafir, who cut the greatest promo where she told everybody on the crowd and everybody that was watching on TV, all 27 people that were in the ratings, that they didn't know her. And she repeated, "You don't know me. You don't know me either. None of you know me." Great. I can't wait until they bring back the human ironing board, Jessamine Duke, so they can get 3/4 of the freaking horsewomen of UFC, while Shayna Baszler's actually doing something in WWE because Shayna Baszler can actually wrestle. And Shayna Baszler can now cut a promo. And Shayna Baszler has a presentation about her. And Shayna Baszler fits in WWE. I actually like Shayna Baszler. I don't need to see Ronda Rousey in a wrestling ring ever again. And because of that, I hope she ends up in AEW, so I don't have to worry about watching her in a wrestling ring ever again. I'm sorry. I can't even say that anymore because now that the return of my favorite wrestler this week, I now have to dedicate at least 12 minutes a week to AEW whenever the Danhausen is on the show.
Okay. Of similar note, Ring of Honor had a match, and it ended prematurely because of a possible concussion to the performer Cole Carter. And what I have to say about that is Dick Knox clearly was not the referee.
I was going to say the same thing. I'm like, I guess Richard Knox wasn't the referee in that match. Cole Carter, that was the dude who got released. I don't remember what the hell he did.
He was an NXT dude. I forget his name. But
he was part of the thing with Tony D'Angelo and Stax. And then he got, I forget what the hell he did. He did probably something stupid.
Right. But anyway, there was a spot in the match where Matt Seidel did something in more or less like, I think Seidel's head or leg landed on Carter's head as his head like hit into the mat, and like, they did the right thing this time. If I find out it was Dick Knox who was the referee, I'll faint.
No, they kept him back in catering. All they had to do was they put a container of orange juice in front of him and it said concentrate.
And speaking of catering,
oh, this is gonna be a great segue. I can already feel it.
Chris Hero made
his
return to the ring and was victorious. Left his boots there, but it was not to retire again. It was to make sure he could fit underneath the ropes so he could have another match in a couple weeks, a tag team match.
With Shift Boyardee?
Yeah, but that's why Dick Knox was able to be back in catering and there to be food there. Because, Chris Hero was elsewhere. What was it? West Coast Wrestling. And so I'm looking forward to the match that he has when Nigel McGuinness is having the call. And he goes from 325 to over 400 pounds before the end of it.
I just wanted to be known that because he is back in this ring, I am setting the over-under of the amount of matches that I picked for him to come back to that I'm actually going to be accurate on, like I've done with the releases.
Yes.
When I said that Madcap Moss was going to be released, I'm going to set that at 1.5, and I'm betting the over. For crying out loud, I don't think that we're going to get the Big Show as Captain Insano in a stairs match.
That's a shame.
But I'm telling you right now, I'm not. Matt Riddle is still on the table. So is Grimace. And a Ronald McDonald on a forklift match. or Nick Camaretto as Sasquatch in a beef jerky on a pole match.
That would be great.
So now that Cassius, I have to ask you, this is a very serious question, and only you can answer this for me too. Now that Cassius Ohno is part of AEW, Ring of Honor, whatever the hell it is,
Yes.
who spends more money on catering? Is it WWE with Otis Dosovich and Braun Strowman? And it looks like Bronson Reed can put down a hamburger or two. And most importantly, and I cannot stress this enough, Kevin Owens. I know that they spend more money on cupcakes than any other human being in the history of mankind. Or is it AEW because they have Cassius Ohno? Who spends more money on catering? Is it Triple H or is it Tony Khan?
Tony Khan.
Yeah, thank you. I had to make sure, and I know you had the answer to this because only you could answer that question accurately. And I know that it's a lot tougher because we have no idea where Ernie is. I'm convinced that Pac is in the hollowed out tree somewhere because we haven't seen Pac since he was part of that blood and guts match and then just kind of disappeared or whatever the hell, or the Stadium Stampede or whatever it was, and then just kind of disappeared and walked away, and we haven't seen him since. And that was the first time we had seen him in about a year.
Right.
So clearly the fact that Samoa Joe is part of the roster with him, he feels like he is threatened when it comes to cookies because he's got somebody on the roster who is better at selling cookies than he is.
And I hear that Samoa Joe was able to secure a long-term deal with the Cookie Monster. and that's why he's able to outsell Pac and Ernie and all the elves of the hollowed out tree. Chris Brown also mentioned a really good name as far as somebody who could really pack down some food. The Big Show, Paul White. I'm going to add another name, world's strongest man, Mark Henry. No doubt he could slam a whole bunch of pancakes down. No doubt.
Oh, then we definitely need Big E as part of it for WWE because of the pancakes.
Right. I remember one of my favorite things was when Corey Graves was so indignant when he would get the pancakes flung at him.
I miss Big E. I never thought I would say that, but I actually miss Big E. That dude was funny as shit. He was entertaining as hell. I really miss him on my TV. It's just WWE is not the same without him.
It isn't, and he more or less said, hey, I won't be able to give you a real update on my career until after WrestleMania, so doesn't sound good if you're waiting all this time, but I'm hoping for the other thing. I'm hoping that it works out. I hope we see Big E in a wrestling ring again, because that end to his career would suck. I think he was about to come into his own. He had a championship reign, and I think he was going to have another one at some point. And it just sucks that it may have gotten cut short.
I would love, even if he can't, and I would feel bad if he couldn't because it would suck. But if they were to get him like some kind of like he could do the broadcasting, like if he was the color analyst with one of the play-by-play guys, like if they had him and Vic Joseph, like if Booker T's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore, which would absolutely devastate me, obviously. But if they replace Booker T with Big E, that's the only way that NXT would actually get any better than it already is because NXT is fantastic.
If I were Big E and they told me you shouldn't wrestle ever again, they could safely get him in the Royal Rumble and not have him take bumps and safely get him out of the ring without hurting him. So that way his last thing in the ring was not getting dropped on his neck.
Or they could do a match with him and Kofi Kingston where they just replicate the finger poke of doom. Not that I would.
Brown saying make Big E Cole's successor. As long as it's not Kevin Patrick.
Clothesline off the ropes. There's a hot tag. Oh my God. I can't deal with it. I think him and Vic Joseph would be a really good team. Vic Joseph is fantastic. The fact that he's not calling either Raw or SmackDown is kind of a surprise. The fact that he's still down in NXT when they got that freaking with freaking Michael Cole on SmackDown now.
One other shocking thing that I did see this week at Bash in Berlin, we will not be seeing the Tribal Chief. So, again, this speaks to, I think, the strength of WWE as a brand and as what they've been presenting lately, where they're like going, hey, we're going to be in, I think they're not going to be in like a giant stadium. It's either a smaller stadium or a large arena in Germany. But they don't feel that they need their top draw to be there. But one thing interesting with the poster, Drew McIntyre was on it. That event's happening in August. Sounds like and seems like, to me, Drew McIntyre has re-signed with the company. So good for him, good for them. I'm glad it worked out.
Gunther's going to be the headliner of that Berlin show. We all know this.
And that's what Chris Brown's saying.
And how dare you? How dare you say that even though Roman Reigns, how dare you say that Roman Reigns is not going to be on that show and it's their top draw? That is not their top draw, Cousin Jay. You and I both know this. Their top draw should be coming out tonight at some point.
Yeah.
L.A. Knight. Yeah. That's their top draw.
Tim sent me an article where Jim Cornette was actually asked who's the wrestler of the year, and they listed off a bunch of names. And he said, tell me which one of these is the wrestler of the year in 2024. Jim Cornette said, it's L.A. Knight. L.A. Knight was not on the list of people that he was given. But Cornette laid out the case of why L.A. Knight is and should be the wrestler of the year. Going from a man who is about to be fired from a modeling gimmick to having, being on the losing end of Bray Wyatt's return match, where he wasn't booked strongly as far as the match goes, to main eventing a $50 million show in a foreign country in less than a year. He's like, tell me who has done better than LA Knight. Now, I think he made a better case for, most improved or biggest jump. I don't know if he quite made it for me as far as, superstar of the year, but, I get what he's saying.
I really do, Jay. If he does, again, we have just a little more than a month until the next, the 8th annual Marquee Awards.
And the categories are posted on the Facebook page. Make sure you check that out and you get your picks ready for when we, don the tuxes and have our big year-end show. And we'll see, there might be some surprises. Wettest hair category, you just never know what could happen. We know what's going to happen.
Biggest surprise. Jay, that is without question. Like I said, unless Roman Reigns shows up between now and the Marquis episode of the After Marks podcast with a bald head, he's winning wettest hair. Let's be serious. It's in this Roman Reigns. He has the wettest. It's in his song. Come on, it's in his entrance song. I'm sorry, he's going to win that. That's a lock. And I really did want to make LA Knight my wrestler of the year. I really did, because I thought the same thing. The guy went from mediocrity, where he was the manager of, and telling people
mediocrity. He was about to be fired by Vince because he wasn't saying titillating the senses the way Vince wanted him to.
Vince was ready to pull the plug on Gunther. He was going to pull the plug on Gunther at July 4th. Vince had to go. Okay, Vince had to go. Triple H needed to take over creative. I mean, anybody could have taken over creative and done a better job of Vince. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, I understand if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, we never would have gotten The Undertaker. I understand if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, we never would have gotten Jake the Snake. But on the flip side, if it wasn't for Vince McMahon, Terry Taylor would have never been the Red Rooster. Freaking Dan Spivey never would have been Waylon Mercy.
I think Waylon Mercy could have worked.
Waylon Mercy probably could have worked. That was a bad example.
Waylon Mercy could have worked. I think Spivey was just at the end of his career, and I think he got injured and was like, this is the end of the road. Oh, by the way, Bray Wyatt based part of his original Eater of Worlds character off of Waylon Mercy. So, yeah. Other than that, I think you're building quite a case here for several people, for several categories. It's going to be very exciting to have the Marquee Awards in a month plus.
I do think that, and unless something really drastically, like if LA Knight actually wins like the Intercontinental title between the end of the year, I'm pretty sure I know who my Wrestler of the Year is. I'm pretty sure I have that locked up. I mean, the wettest hair has already been locked up. It's locked up, January 1st of every year. It's locked up.
And Luthers himself.
And I'm pretty sure that you and I are both going to give Dick Knox the Brainless Moment of the Year.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's hard to... There are a few people that could be Shitbag of the Year. And if we keep it specifically to wrestling-related people, because it's like, you could sit there and have, like, Vladimir Putin, the people who killed, like, the Israeli citizens, terrorist attack, those people could be Shitbags of the Year. But if you're talking within the wrestling realm, I mean, clearly Vince McMahon always has a place high up on that list. He's done many things this year that could put him back on that list, whether it was him bringing himself back into power. And then, I mean, I don't know if we can consider him a superstar, but, the CEO of TKO Holdings should get like an MVP award or something of that effect for being the person to officially put that old senile man out to pasture and said, stay in your damn lane.
Cousin Jay, it made me think of previous Marquee Awards, and there was one category in particular that was won by, I had to think about it for other years, but I know one year we did give it to Lacey Evans' husband, because he's the one that saved us from the horrible, horrible storyline between Lacey Evans and being pregnant with Ric Flair's daughter, Ric Flair's child, and she ended up really pregnant.
Right.
So that's why I brought back the Curtis Axel Lifetime Humanitarian of the Year award, because nobody exemplifies a lifetime of achievement than a man who is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
I mean, we are getting close to 9 years.
So, yeah, Ariel, whatever his name is, I always want to say Helwani, but I already know that's not it.
We all know that that's the journalist dude who Tony Khan hates.
Who Tony Khan had a tism about.
Yes. Chris Brown saying he might have co-shitbags of the year. And there's nothing wrong with having co-shitbags of the year. I mean, if I were, again, including people outside the wrestling world, I think Kurt Schilling would be very high on the list.
Yes, very much so. He would be getting it if it wasn't for the fact that it was just strictly wrestling. I would also give it to Kane Bloom for not trading Chris Sale when he had the chance and get rid of that terrible contract.
Sad.
Although my mark-out moment of the year might be the fact that Craig Breslow is now the general manager of the Red Sox.
Yeah.
And it could get multiplied if they actually get that Japanese pitcher that wants to, that's going to get posted pretty soon and wants to play with a with other Japanese players, and it just so happens that Yoshida, the Red Sox right fielder, is a former teammate of his from Japan.
And what's his name? On the Angels, technically still.
Shohei Ohtani.
Yeah, he might want to go to the Red Sox.
Well, I know that he's got an endorsement deal with New Balance. New Balance's headquarters is in Boston, so
yeah.
I just think that the Red Sox need to do something so I can run down my street butt naked like Doug did when the Cubs won the World Series.
Right.
Or Doug.
Douglas.
Douglas.
All right. Anything else you have on your list? Brainless one.
No, I got all of my. Well, I'm brainless.
Yeah.
I was looking at last week's notes and I was like, damn, I crossed off all my stuff. I actually have one more newsworthy note. And then obviously I got, good, bad, and brainless, the predictions, and my top 10 for this week. I need to talk about this because it seems like it's coming up a lot.
Okay.
So everybody knows that Adam Edge has been part of WWE for a very long time. He was a very successful wrestler there. I know Vince loved Edge. You can't tell me otherwise. Vince booked him so good. And I said for years after he got hurt with his neck injury that the person that WWE needs to find a replacement for, even though they'll never do it because they're never going to find another one of, is Edge. And I said they're not the same without Edge. And Edge came back and I was so happy. He gets a chance now when he goes to AEW. Okay? He makes his decision to do this. Nobody told him that he had to do it. He could have went off and retired. Nobody's going to blame him for what he's doing. The fact that there is WWE fans out there that are calling him a traitor for going to AEW, I have zero issue with Adam Copeland going to AEW. I have been entertained by Adam Copeland, Edge, for a very long time. I loved his work. One of the things I always remember him from was when he freaked out and broke the laptop when the anonymous Raw general manager, the look on his face before he snapped was forever etched in my brain. He's done some of the best work. He is one of John Cena's, if he's not John Cena's greatest rival, he's definitely one of his best rivals, but he's in my opinion, he's John Cena's greatest rival. They had some of the best matches, some of the best build-ups and all that stuff. I have no problem with him going to AEW. I have no problem with him prolonging his career. I have absolutely zero issue with him wanting to finish his career with his best friend. And if WWE wasn't going to be the ones that made it happen, and it had to be AEW, so be it. I'm never going to watch AEW because I have no reason to watch AEW, but I have no animosity or any kind of ill will towards Edge, Adam Copeland, for going to AEW. There was nothing else for him to do in WWE. He already accomplished everything. He's won the Royal Rumble. He's won Money in the Bank. He's a world champion. He's main evented WrestleMania. There was nothing else for him to do. If they were not going to make him champion again, there was nothing else for him to do. So the fact that there's wrestling fans out there, and it's not all of them. I know it's just a small spectrum of wrestling fans that have an issue with this, just like the wrestling fans out there that go out and you can't say a negative thing about Kenny and the Bucks because like 130 something people are going to come and attack you. But it's silly that fans are calling him a traitor for going to AEW. What are your thoughts on the fans calling Edge a traitor?
Well, it's a bunch of immature, basement-dwelling children.
Neckbeards.
Yeah. Edge is like, I left WWE on great terms. They wanted to use me as a special attraction. I want to be able to tell stories and create. And if you bring me in every 3 months, I don't feel like I got enough time to sink my teeth truly into the characters or the storylines that I'm in because I'm in and out, in and out, in and out. And he was like, with the time I have left in my in-ring career, I needed to do this now before it was too late. The people who are calling Edge a traitor are just need to get the hell over themselves. Enjoy professional wrestling. Just because somebody's not on your team anymore doesn't mean you dislike them, unless you're Johnny Damon, brother of Matt, who goes to the Yankees after he says, "Oh, yep, this is how I am. This is my haircut. I'm an idiot, and I love being like this. I love being a free spirit. Oh, George Steinbrenner, you're going to pay me a few $1 million more a year? Yeah, I'm going to cut my hair. I'm going to..." Stuff like that drives me crazy, but that's not what's happening here. He didn't go from the Red Sox to the Yankees. He went to AEW. It's not the same thing. It's not like they sit there and have this like bitter rivalry where like one fan base and they don't like each other. There's a little bit of that, but there's not really a rivalry because they don't have matches against each other. That was the thing with the Red Sox and Yankees that's different than AEW and WWE. Like, they're not going against each other. They may have shows that sometimes compete on the same night, but they're completely different products. See the Hangman versus Swerve match.
Yeah.
You're not getting that in WWE. Even when Brock Lesnar decides he wants to headbutt himself so he could get blood, you don't see somebody drinking Brock Lesnar's blood and then spitting it in the air. But It's just absolutely ridiculous that the fans are trying to call a man who is among the most loyal performers in WWE history a traitor. They could go screw themselves.
I will say this. That blood spot between Paige and Swerve at Full Gear was unnecessary, and I would feel the same way if it happened in WWE, if it happened in Impact, if it happened in New Japan. I would think it's above what it should be. I think it's unnecessary and just silly and stupid to have it, unless it was Brock Lesnar.
The only thing I would say comes close is it felt like it was an unnecessary spot when Brock opened up Randy after the SummerSlam match. When he elbowed him in the head a couple times, and apparently that was part of, how they were booking it. But that felt unnecessary. But
honest to goodness, if Brock Lesnar did that to somebody else, that's an entirely different story. But that's because it's Brock Lesnar. Because Brock Lesnar is the alpha male of our species, and I will continue to say that until I can no longer say it ever again. But it's just crazy. And I'm hoping that Timmy's here because I don't see it as the Red Sox losing a player to the Yankees. No. For me, this is like when a guy for the Giants is a really good player, and then Dan Snyder went and spent a shit ton of money on that player to have him go play for the Redskins. That's how I look at it as. Like Adam Edge going to the Redskins, where it's this guy was good, and then the Redskins are going to overpay for him, and then he's going to suck. Because that's the Dan Snyder way.
Not anymore.
Not anymore, he's not. Which is funny because I already know that the starting free safety for the Giants is going to sign with the Redskins because why not? And they're not the Commanders, they're the Redskins. I don't care what anybody tells me.
All right, Brainless. Anything else you got to say before you dip in the top 10?
That's all of my notes. Do you have anything else, Cousin Jay?
No.
Are you sure?
Yep. Yeah.
Well, I do have one little note, but luckily this note is going to lead to bigger things.
Okay.
So on Wednesday for Dynamite, they had another situation where they showed the Devil. Yeah. And after what the Devil did, they showed a video of the Devil laughing. And I'll tell you right now, I know that we dissected this every way, shape, or form. I know you texted me during the pay-per-view last week and said this might be the spot where they show the Devil, and then they didn't do anything with the Devil during the pay-per-view, which is fine.
Sting. Oh, wait.
I'm going to tell you right now, if the laugh is any indication of who it's going to be, this will be the biggest fart in church in the history of farting in churches. Jungle Boy sounds like he is the devil. And it got me thinking, to the point where I was actually starting to put together my list of my top 10 Tony Khan announcements that he is going to make in the future. And I decided to punt on that for a week and go with this instead.
Okay.
It got me thinking. They're going to have Jack Perry, and this is going to be a giant freaking flop. Because of course it is, because it's AEW, and this is how they roll.
And so it's Jack Perry.
And it's Jack Perry who got CM Punk fired because he was a freaking. I'm telling you, people can sit there and say what they want about CM Punk and all that stuff. It takes two to tango, and Jungle Jerk should have been just as responsible. Either way, I came up with the top 10 people I'd rather see as the devil over Jungle Jerk when he gets unveiled as the devil, whenever that is. Number 10, Dino Man. I'm sorry, Kill Switch.
No. I will not call him Kill Switch.
He will forever be Dino Man to me.
He's Dino Man.
Number 9, Hornswoggle. Even though his being unveiled as the illegitimate child of Vince McMahon, it's still not a bigger buzzkill than Buzz Killington.
Who likes a good story about the
Number 8, Jim Cornette. As John Candy once said in the great movie Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, and if you've never seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, considering yesterday was Thanksgiving, you are just missing out on life. Not only is that my favorite John Candy movie, but that is an all-time classic. But anyway, you have a better chance of picking up sticks with your butt cheeks than you do of seeing Jim Cornette as the devil in AEW.
Yep.
But alas, I'd still think it'd be a better pick than Jack Perry. Number 7, Chris Hero. I don't think. I mean, I know that the whole thing where a camera adds about 10 pounds, so clearly they had like half a camera on him when they were shooting him as the devil the way they did. Because if that was Cassius Ohno, oh no, I wouldn't believe it.
All right.
Number 6, the corpse of Luke Perry.
Ooh.
The best part about that is the corpse of Luke Perry would still cut a better promo than Jungle Boy. Number 5. Number 5. Boy, this man gets mentioned a lot in this podcast, and I have no idea why. Bobby Fish. Hang on. There's more to this. Bobby Fish, but only if it leads to Vince Russo getting hired by AEW Creative so that we finally get the match that we've all been waiting for. Bobby Fish versus Ric Flair in a Noah's Ark on a pole match.
Bobby, remember when we fought before the flood?
And the only way that match can get booked is if Noah was on commentary and Abraham Lincoln cost Bobby Fish the match.
Yes.
Oh. Number 4, Jacksonville Jaguars quarterback Trevor Lawrence.
I like it. I'll take that.
Number 3, and I really don't want to see it, but he would definitely be a better pick as the devil than Jack Perry. Number 3, CM Punk. I don't think he would ever go back because why the hell would anybody want to work with a bunch of children in an empty-headed dumb fuck like Adam Page?
Yeah.
Oh, I like this one. I don't know what the hell I was thinking, but I do like this one. Tony Khan himself.
It was me. It was me, MJF. It was me all along.
Wow, Jay, you and I are on the same page because I actually wrote that Tony Khan a la Vince McMahon as the higher power for The Undertaker and the Ministry of Darkness.
Yeah.
So that's 2 through 10, and I like to play the game where you try to guess what number 1 is. With that wonderful list and the way that my brain and all the brain cells that I no longer have left, would you care to happen to take a guess? That's that Bristol Eastern education for me. Would you care to take a guess of who you think the numero uno person would be? And no, it's not Kenny Omega.
Yeah, it's not the Bucks. I'll say Christian.
How about this? I'll give you a hint.
Okay.
This person is technically a part of our Hall of Fame.
Technically
speaking, they are part of our Hall of Fame. Granted, they share that status with a whole bunch of other people, including a man that's named after an alcoholic beverage and another man who missed a flying crossbody on Pinetime Brian Lee.
Okay. I mean, the Black Scorpion.
The Nature
Boy. Whether or not it's played by Ric Flair, it doesn't matter to me.
The Nature Boy, Ric Flair, is the person I would most want to see over Jack Perry as the Devil, because then Ric Flair would have the dubious honor of not only being unveiled as the Black Scorpion, but also the Devil in AEW.
He was not the Shockmaster. If he does some magic tricks as the Devil, I would be fully on board with Ric Flair being the Devil.
I think it only works if Sting was the champion, though.
All right, well, we got a couple of months to make that happen.
If that, I swear, Jay, that'll be. I know I said I will never watch AEW, but if they did something stupid like Ric Flair is actually the Devil, I would probably start watching again.
Well, I mean, you said you're going to devote 12 minutes a week now that the Danhausen is back.
Yes, and it's because I don't want to pay him $6 to not watch him wrestle.
Right.
Yeah?
Yeah.
I'm going to do the announcements one for next week. I really want to. Another thing, though, I take that back. If there's anybody I really want to see, I hope it is Bobby Fish, because I really want to see this dirt on a pole match with him and Ric Flair.
Yes.
On Noah's Ark, with Abraham Lincoln as a special guest referee, Adam and Eve on commentary, Christopher Columbus as the special guest timekeeper. And what do they all have? And what do they all have in common?
Hey, if they're doing the dirt on a pole match, they should do it on top of the Great Pyramids of Giza.
Yes.
All right. Chris Brown saying Y2 Jackass is the Devil. Okay.
He thinks Chris Jericho is the Devil?
That's what he said. By the way, anytime you say Kenny and the Bucks, like you did earlier in the show, I keep on wanting to sing Benny and the Jets.
Kenny and the Bucks.
Kenny and the Bucks. But it'll be Elton John singing it when he sang it with the Muppets. That's the best version of it.
Oh, that's good shit.
Hey, pal.
Don't ruin that song. I actually like Elton John, so please don't ruin that song for me.
Yeah.
All right, I think it's time to get some predictions for tomorrow's Survivor Series. All 5 matches.
Yeah.
All right, so the first match, Santos Escobar versus Carlito.
I found it strange that when, they brought Carlito back, like, with what they were doing specifically with Lashley and with the Street Profits, I thought it was. I wasn't a huge fan of the fact that they had the LWO go over because I think it, stalled Lashley and Street Profits a little bit. All that being said, there ain't no way in hell Carlito needs to win this match. The big boss for Santos Escobar at this point is Rey Mysterio. And he's not going to get to Rey Mysterio if he doesn't beat Carlito. I think he's going to get some assistance tomorrow, and he will go over on Carlito. I don't know if that means that more members of the LWO end up turning and joining Santos. Whether Joaquin Wilde, I've been with him since we were Legado del Fantasma. I don't know if it's that way or if they bring in Nicole's favorite, Los Lotharios, to sell some timeshares. Oh, wait. That would be bringing in
Carlito's cousin and his brother.
Yeah.
The luchador or the matadors. Ole.
Anyway, yeah, I see no way in heck Carlito wins this match. Santos Escobar takes it.
Santos Escobar, and that's my lock of the pay-per-view. The only way Carlito wins tomorrow is if he wins by disqualification. That's it. And I don't see that happening. Escobar goes over, and he goes over clean.
Yeah.
Women's
Unless Escobar ends up the only other possible scenario is Escobar loses but beats the holy heck out of Carlito. Yeah. Gets disqualified or something along those lines.
The referee decides to reverse his decision and gives the match to Carlito, which leads to Santos beating the shit out of Carlito even more.
But I would say I'd put that on the lower end of expectation.
Right. Agreed. Yeah. Women's World Heavyweight title match. Rhea Ripley versus Zoe Stark.
My lock for the weekend. Rhea Ripley is not losing this match. They've spent more time building her as part of the men's War Games match than they have building this match. And I think Zoe Stark, she has potential to do something at some point. It's cool that they're giving her this spot, but she's a placeholder for them until they have the Royal Rumble and have another big name, marquee matchup that they could promote.
I agree. I think I wanted to make her my lock, but I think Rhea Ripley's still going to win it either way. I just think that the way that they're booking Santos and that promo he cut last week, dressed up as Tony Montana, I really liked what he was doing. Santos is better as a heel anyway, but
right.
Rhea does go over.
Chris Brown saying Rhea in a squash and said the Spooky Pals just retained the tag titles.
That's right. They fought they just wrestled the Street Profits. That's
Porque!
Gunther defends the Intercontinental Championship against The Miz.
I don't see Gunther losing this. I think for him to lose it, I think it's got to be at a big event, whether it's going to end up being at Royal Rumble or if it ends up being at WrestleMania. I think it would be a good thing for Gunther to go into Bash in Berlin with a heavyweight title, whether it's the Universal Championship or he has the World Heavyweight Championship. And as much as there's that pipe dream of, he's never going to lose the title, I think he'll lose it in some sort of fashion that doesn't make him look weak. Whether they have him defend the title in Elimination Chamber again or something of the sort where the odds are stacked against him and he loses. But I have a feeling that he beats The Miz here and big things are on the way for him in 2024.
I'm going with the upset here. You have the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time going up against the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. The only way this match would be any better when it comes to quality of Intercontinental Champions is if Chris Jericho made it a triple threat.
And Randy Savage came back to life.
And Randy Savage came back to... And Bret Hart didn't have that stroke all those years ago.
Right. And
Mr. Perfect has to come back to life too.
Yes. And if he can't make it, have his son be his proxy.
And the honky tonk man has to blast somebody in the head with the guitar. I don't know what it is. All the years that I've been a wrestling fan and all the years I've watched WWE, it makes no sense for a guy who has like 3 or 4 wins in all of 2023 to win the Intercontinental Championship. It's the Miz. Miz is and I'm not even just saying it just to say it. The Miz is one of the greatest Intercontinental Champions of all time. He is grossly underrated for what he is able to do and all the stuff he has accomplished.
Think of how he elevated it when they had just done the brand split and they did Talking Smack. Yep. And he was so, according to Maurice, literally irate. He's like, I'm not Intercontinental Champion and you can't even find 5 minutes for me on the show. But they put him on Talking Smack, and then he had that moment with him and, Bryan Danielson or Danielson Bryan or
Daniel Bryanson.
There you go, Daniel Bryanson. And he elevated that title not just by flipping out and like, I'm the Intercontinental Champion, damn it. But then he went and he had that. He had the feud with Dolph, which was my feud of the year. Yep. Miz did a lot of good things with that title, and I believe he had that title at one point during the Mizdow.
He might have.
And that just added another layer of it. But, he's had a good amount of reigns. He's had a lot of days with that title. It's not like, Mick Foley, who had the WWE Championship 3 times for a grand total of like 29 days. He's had it. I believe Miz has had that Intercontinental strap more days than any other person.
If he's not number 1, he's at least number 2.
Right.
Yeah, and The Miz has done a great job. He's one of the greatest Intercontinental Champions, if not the greatest Intercontinental Champion of all time. And honest to goodness, if he did it, it wouldn't surprise me. I could see something like maybe Kaiser or Giovanni Vinci costs Gunther the match. If The Miz wins, he's not going to win it like clean, even though he's the face in the match.
Right.
Something like one of the guys from Imperium's either going to cost Gunther the title, or Miz is going to get help from his fellow Clevelander, Johnny Gargano, so that Jeff can have after Mark's Hall of Famer El Jefe can have a Gargano-esque Gargano situation, because the 2 greatest Cleveland sports entertainers will help each other, and one will become Intercontinental Champion once again.
Right.
We'll see. I don't know what it is. I just think that the way that they're booking, I can see the Miz winning this title.
Okay.
Although this is going to be one of those things that ends up on freezing cold takes. All right. First War Games match. Team Damage Control, which is Bayley, Asuka, Kairi Sane, and the women's champion, Io Sky, going up against Team Bianca, which is Bianca Belair, Charlotte Flair, Shotzi Blackheart, and just announced last week, Becky Lynch.
If Triple H truly is trying to book Japanese wrestlers better, you add new members to a faction. The good idea would be to have that faction win, and I'm going to go with Damage Control winning this match. I think Damage Control is getting pretty bloated, not NWO bloated, but bloated a little bit. So I think at some point we're going to have a member or 2 out.
Yeah.
All that being said, I'm going with them winning this match.
I'm gonna.
I don't know if they want Kyrie to have a strong performance and get a pin here. I don't know if they want the women's champion to do this. I don't know if they want to sit there and have a little dissension in the ranks and, have Bayley get the pin like EO is going for the pin that pulls her off and like does her ending move and something like that. But Damage Control.
I agree. Damage Control wins. I'm convinced that Shotzi's in this match to eat the pinfall, but I could be wrong.
Sure.
I'm going to go a step further, and I'm going to do like what we were doing many years ago on this podcast when we were trying to predict when DIY was going to break up. And I'm going to say not only does Damage Control win, but somehow Bayley gets kicked out of Damage Control.
Okay.
I'm sure it's going to probably happen sometime right before WrestleMania or right around WrestleMania. But I'm going to do this every pay-per-view that Damage Control is in this.
Yeah.
And I'm going to predict that Bayley gets kicked out of Damage Control. Like I said, I was going to do some crazy predictions for this.
All right. Chris Brown saying he's going with Team Bianca. All right.
And the last match. Team Cody Rhodes versus Team Spooky Pals. The Spooky Pals, consisting of Finn Balor, Damian Priest, Bobblehead Joe, Dirty Dom, and Drew McIntyre, going up against the team of Team Cody, which is, of course, adrenaline in my soul. I am Captain Cody Rhodes. Oh! Cody Rhodes, World Heavyweight Champion Seth Franklin Rollins, main event Jey Uso, one of my personal favorites, Sami Zayn, and the GOAT, the Viper, the Legend Killer, the returning Randy Orton.
There are so many moving parts with this. There are so many storylines that they could have long-term storytelling that could be interesting cogs to keep things going forward. Rollins and Cody Rhodes haven't necessarily like been on the same side a lot. There's a lot of like stuff between the two of them. Jey Uso clearly has stuff between everybody. And
like we've said about Randy Orton's been there long enough that Randy Orton's got shit with everybody.
And he's a Viper, he's a snake. He could turn on you at any moment. All that being said, Triple H wants the fans to go home happy. They go home happiest when they see 20 RKOs and a Randy Orton pin. So I'm going to say Randy Orton gets the pin. I think they're going to hold off for at least a little bit of time before we get the Cody versus Randy match. That's my guess, so I'm going to go with Team Cody with this one.
I agree with you, and not only am I agreeing with you, Randy Orton does get the pinfall, but bobblehead JD McDonough is the one that eats the pinfall.
Okay.
How many RKOs do we see tomorrow? If I set the over,
I'm gonna go. I was gonna say my under over would be 5.5.
I was gonna say that's exactly what I'm gonna set the over under at is 5.5 because the 5 dudes in the match, and that either leaves one of his teammates or Rhea Ripley definitely eating. And I really do think Rhea Ripley's eating an RKO tomorrow.
Chris Brown saying 4 RKOs are what we're going to see. That is not a bad pick. He said to Priest, Dom, Rhea, and Cody. Okay. I think everybody wants to see Dom eat an RKO.
Oh, I can almost guarantee you Dominic's eating an RKO, JD McDonough's eating an RKO, and Rhea Ripley's eating an RKO. If, by chance, Randy Orton, after War Games' match, were to RKO any of his teammates, who do you see it being?
I think the smart money would be Cody. One thing they can do if they want, that they were hoping to do a year and a half ago, that they could, since the Spooky Pals and the Bloodline kind of have you know, helping each other a little bit here, they could try to start setting something up with Orton and Roman for Royal Rumble. There are a lot of ways they could go. And quite honestly, the wild card in this is Randy Orton.
Mm-hmm.
He's coming back as a babyface. We have not seen him in quite a while, and again, he's the Viper. You never trust a snake. You turn your back on him, snake will stab you in the back.
He's going to RKO Jey Uso tomorrow. And I'm going to tell you why he's going to do it. Number one, Jay and Jimmy were the ones that kind of took out Randy Orton. That's why he's been out for the last year and a half. They kayfabe wrote him off TV because of Jey Uso. You could tell on the look in his face when it was announced that Randy Orton was going to be the 5th member of Team Cody that he wasn't very thrilled about that. And since Cody was the one that brought Jey Uso to Raw, Randy Orton RKOing Jey Uso could be that first step in the direction towards Randy versus Cody at some point down the line. I think that the one person who is the most safe from no RKO tomorrow is Sami Zayn. Anybody else in that match can get an RKO. I don't see Sami Zayn being the one that gets it.
Tinfoil hat. I don't think they'll go this direction, but what if Cody Rhodes RKO'd Orton?
They'll start the heel turn a little bit sooner than people were expecting?
I'm just saying. I know that he is hot as all get up right now. He's doing a lot of good things.
Okay. I don't hate it. Wait, what if instead of an RKO, he hits him with a Cody cutter?
I mean, that would make more sense, but if he was trying to embarrass him and what have you, that could be a way to go.
What if the way he embarrasses Randy Orton is he puts a paper bag over his head?
That could be mark out moment of the year possibility for me. And I mean, we're in, like the 8th inning right now.
We're in the top of the 8th, and with one out and a runner on second.
Yeah.
So I know that Paul said that the Romans in the 3rd inning. No, we're in the 8th inning. There's a pitching change. They're singing "Sweet Caroline" right now.
Yeah.
I got one last question, and then we can get to the next thing.
Yeah.
Do we see Pepsi Phil tomorrow in Chicago?
No.
Okay. I agree with you.
We may see him in Chicago, but we won't see him
at the United Center
live event.
We will not see him at the United Center. He's going to buy a ticket and show up as a fan.
That would be the biggest troll job ever. What's CM Punk doing here? And if he got the front row with the hard camera, you could tell he would make such a stink if they tried to move him from that seat.
Like they did to Enzo all those years ago. That's all we need. We need CM Punk showing up in the first row. And Caleb Braxton shows up to, you know who I am, but you don't know why I'm here.
Yep.
Say hello to the bad guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that is it for the predictions. So I guess there's one more thing we have to do.
Yep.
It is time, once again, for our good,
our bad,
and our brainless.
Yeah.
So, Cousin Jay, what do you got for your good this week?
My good goes out to Cody Rhodes. There was somebody on X, formerly Twitter, who posted a picture of a girl. It looked like she had some kind of disability. Seems like the family really loves pro wrestling, doesn't have the money to go to a show. They're in the Detroit area. Cody said, I think he was either tagged or ended up seeing the post and said, okay, I gotcha. I'm not going to be on that show. I'm going to actually be in Boston that night, but they're going to be in Detroit, and tickets are on me. So good on Cody Rhodes. Does not have to go out and do anything like that, but doing the building his fan base one person at a time and or strengthening their bond already to him. So good on Cody.
I love that man. He can do no wrong. I'm so happy for him. He deserves all the good things. I hope he eventually finishes his story and becomes WWE champion because he deserves it.
Yeah.
My good for this week. I'm not even gonna say it. I'm gonna sing it. Very, very, very nice, very nice, very nice, very, very, very nice, very evil. Danhausen returned. There is nothing that was better in wrestling this week.
Yeah.
I am so happy. You have no idea. I iron sheeped myself when I saw him. Yes.
Very nice.
I watched it a handful of times too. I loved it. Great reaction. I'm so happy he's back. You have no idea how happy I am that Danhausen's back.
The Danhausen.
Not bad for a guy I didn't even know existed, and I thought he was just some weird wrestling fan that dresses up the way he did on Twitter like 4 or 5 years ago.
Yeah.
I don't know who this Danhausen is, but he's talking to CM Punk a lot. What is your bad?
I am going to go with Nikki Bella. Nikki Bella, you were very close to getting Brainless this week, but you got beaten out by somebody a bit more brainless. But trying to take something where clearly WWE was being petty, you spent a decade and a half there, and it's got to suck where you literally give your body, like, she has the messed up neck that's going to be with her the rest of her life. She did play a prominent role in WWE. Total Divas and Total Bellas made the company money. You would think, if nothing else, yeah, we could mention her name. We're going to mention Blake Shelton, and they didn't have the decency to do that. But then trying to make this about, like, oh, they hate women. This is a sexism thing. I'm sorry, they've done the same thing to the men for far longer than they have to the women. It sucks and it is classless what they did, but you didn't need to sit there and go in the direction you did. So I guess it would be co-bad. WWE should have mentioned her. She didn't need to go where she went.
I'm surprised. I thought that was going to be your Brainless this week.
It was originally, but it
okay.
was.
See, I'm going to go for my bad. I'm going to go with MJF and the bump he took. Now, I know that you mentioned in the tag team match that he had with Joe against the Ass Boys. After the match, the Ass Boys, and they beat the shit out of him and it injured his leg. And they were going to actually scrap the entire title match altogether with him and Jay White after he got ambulanced out. And then Adam Cole, baby, showed up and said, I'll do it with his one leg. That would have been enough for my bad. But the fact that MJF stole the ambulance and drove back there, stop me if you've heard that one before, WWE. And then during the match, he hit a cutter that he jumped over the top rope and hit Jay White with the cutter on the outside of the ring and actually hurt his hip to the point where he needed crutches on Wednesday to get to the ring. That him and now the Ring of Honor Tag Team Champions are both on crutches, which is kind of funny. If you really seriously injured your hip like that, whether you signed that monster contract extension that nobody knows about or not, it's not a smart move. I got to give it my bad because it's bad, but it's not brainless. Taking unnecessary bumps like that is just something you shouldn't be doing.
Right.
What do you got for your brainless?
Nick Hogan, brother. Dude, I hope you get your life together. I know what happened with your friend all those years ago. Like, you got to be living with some guilt. You know, even though people understand, like, people make mistakes. You know, you were driving while intoxicated then, and your friend is forever changed. And you go out, and I know it's 15 years later. It's not like it was, like, within a couple of months. But then you go out and, like, you get pulled over and you get a DUI again. Like, dude, I hope you get yourself together, but that is my brainless this week.
That's a good choice, actually. I think that's a fantastic choice. I'm sorry, like I said earlier in this podcast, that blood spot where Hangman Page spit out Swerve Strickland's blood during that match gets my brainless because it was really unnecessary, unwarranted, unjustified, and was just really just did not need to happen. I'm already it's bad enough that you got the bad publicity when John Moxley, with John Moxley bleeding in every match. He had the freaking skewers in his head. You still haven't recovered from the fact that Nick Gage was cutting Chris Jericho's head open with a pizza cutter in the middle of a Papa John's or Domino's commercial.
I think it's good marketing.
I just don't think it was a necessary spot, and I think you really shouldn't have done it. And like it was just like in Dumb and Dumber. Just when I thought you couldn't get any dumber, you go and do something like this. It's like just when I thought you guys couldn't put anything else on any of your programming that would make me not want to watch your programming, and then you do a spot like this. And now I really, other than watching my favorite wrestler Danhausen wrestle, I have no other reason to watch AEW. I already don't like Hangman Page, and you guys really didn't do Swerve any suggestions. And the fact that everybody was like really on board with this because they came up with this idea. A lot of people in the backstage area were on board with it. And the guys who were they have to ask for these spots were like, yeah, let's do this. No. You're not Wes Craven. You're not Stephen King. You're not any of these horrific people. You're not Michael Myers or Jason Voorhees. This was not needed, and I didn't want to see it. So that's why I get my brainless for this week.
All right.
So if you like what you see, whether you are a first-time watcher or a continuous fan, make sure you like us on Facebook. Follow us on whatever the hell Elon Musk is calling Twitter these days. Follow us on Instagram and subscribe to us on YouTube at the letter T, the letter H, the letter E, the letter F, the letter N. Come on, Bristol Eastern Education, MARKS, and Marks. If you like, follow and subscribe to us, we will do the same back. That has always been our
mantra, and make sure you set up notifications on the Facebooks and on the YouTube so that when we are live, you will be notified that we are live so you can join in and talk about our favorite sport that we all love to hate, professional wrestling. And
New
make
York
sure
Jets football.
And make sure you hit subscribe on our Spotify page where you can take the podcast on the road on all these different social media outlets.
Yeah?
Yeah, and that is absolutely it. That's all, folks. Right?
Wow, Jay, your Bristol Eastern is starting to show a little bit there.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm kidding. He didn't go to Eastern. Only one of us was lucky enough to go to the other high school since it wasn't St. Paul's.
We got the bell.
You also have Aaron Hernandez.
Not anymore.
Not anymore. We don't.
Not anymore.
Yeah. Wait,
Yeah.
You guys won the bell yesterday?
We did.
Son of. All right. Well, that just took me out of everything. Great. That's wonderful. You know, we only had the bell 1 year. I was in high school, and that was my freshman year. Nothing like watching Billy Woods walking down the hallway with the bell ringing it. And I said, boy, that's a great feeling. And then Tim Washington happened at Bristol Central. We never saw the bell again.
Yep.
But
Yep.
anyway, I think that's it for the podcast.
Yep. Nothing else to talk about. We covered it all.
I don't think so, pal. Curtis Axel, is that you? Yes, it's me. I am Curtis Axel. And you know what? You guys mentioned me once during the podcast earlier, so now that is my segue at this point to do what I have to do. And what is that you have to do, Curtis Axel? Well, Brainless One, did you know that today, the day after Thanksgiving, November 24th of 2023, at an incredible 3,225 days, I, FM Marks Hall of Fame, is still alive in the 2015 Royal Rumble.
Down, 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 down. Down, 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 down,
No. Anyway, for episode 300, because I would cover it up, for episode 337 of everyone's favorite wrestling podcast, the FM Marks.
I'm Jay, and he is.
I am Brainless Hausen. Make sure you mark out
with your guac out. See you, everybody. Enjoy Survivor Series. We will see you next week.
Yeah?
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 Thanks for tuning in.
Yeah?
Yeah?